meditation to keep the focus on the super soul. And then pranayama, the breath control. Pratyahara, which is the withdrawal of all our senses into ourselves. So we're not focusing on anything else. We're focusing on the super soul within our body. And then, and so on, the process which goes on to the samadhi. So it is a material process in the sense the Astanga Yoga gives the practitioner lots of powers along the way. So it's a power to become smaller than the smallest, be able to fly, be able to lighter than air, and so on. And then to be able to achieve anything, to be able to control other people, and so on. So this is a process which gives a lot of power to the yogis, and if it is not used properly, then it leads obviously to the misuse of those powers given to the practitioners, and invariably some of the yogis fall down, and they have to then restart the process either in this life or in the following life. But because they have made progress in the process of bhakti yoga, Astanga yoga, so they carry a certain credit, and therefore that credit is never wasted. And for us, whatever we do in the Krishna consciousness, it is never wasted. Every little effort that we make, everything we do, that actually is adding to our good fortune in this life and in the life subsequently. So, as I said, the Dhyan yogis focus on the super soul within, but the supreme reality, the absolute truth, has three aspects, as explained in Bhagavatam. So there is the all-pervading Brahman, which is the Brahma Jyoti, which is the effulgence from the Supreme Lord, and the Lord within the heart we talked about, Super Soul, and then there is the ultimate, which is the Supreme Person, who is living within the spiritual world. Bhagwan is the source of Brahman and Paramatma, and is therefore very much central to the whole process. So Bhagavad Gita talks about 5 main topics. So there is the Ishvara, which is the Supreme, Ishvara the Krishna, then Jiva, which is the living entities, you, me, everybody else, and then Prakriti, which is the material world around us, including other planets and universes. So all material matter it talks about, and Kala, the time factor, which is one of the great tools for Krishna to actually make the world go round and make all the changes. And then Karma, which results from the actions that we have taken, and the material, which results in the material activity, and so on. So it is explained in Bhagavatam and in our scriptures. So Bhoga, which is the sense enjoyment. So there are five kind of main topics: Ishwar, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, and Kama. So Bhoga, or sense enjoyment, is basically Jiva trying to exploit and dominate the Prakriti, which is the material nature, for its own enjoyment, and consistent with the Kala and the Kama. So this is a karma kanda activity which accrues karma, sometimes good, sometimes bad, and all in the process of the jiva, me and you, trying to enjoy ourselves. And then there is another kind of yoga is described as when the jiva looks at Ishvara and relates to Krishna, and then actually works with Prakriti, material nature, and Kala and time, consistent with its recognition of the position of the living entity, the jiva, which is the real us inside us, as a servant, eternal servant of Lord Krishna. And of course, any karmic reaction is good or bad, means that the jiva has to adopt another body in the next life, and therefore it has to actually taste whatever karmic reactions have been created, good and bad. But our in Krishna consciousness, we believe that that is, even good karma is not good. So what we have to do is to actually do all our actions in the service of Lord Krishna, and with that way it becomes nishkama, which means there are no reactions. So that actually is the process of bhakti yoga in various stages, and then once we do that, then the jiva is actually liberated at the end of its current life. So Bhagavad Gita tells us that we are all spirit souls and eternal fragmental parts of Krishna. Underlying nature of the soul is Satchidanand, which is eternal, knowledgeable, and blissful, which is same as Krishna in quality, but in quantity it's unfathomably different. And jiva at the moment is actually entrapped in a physical body which is made up of 5 elements: fire, water, earth, air, and ether. And we also have a subtle body which travels with us from one life to the other. That is the mind, intelligence, and false ego. So over the various lifetimes of our body, in various bodies, the mirror of our soul has been covered by impurities whilst trying to satisfy our material desires. Soul can only be happy if it is purified and aligned in the service of Krishna. So there is a story about it's an allegory, which is you can't take it word for word, but it is essentially conveys a very spiritual message. The story about a holy man on the banks of Ganges. A young person comes to serve him and learn from that holy man about the soul and the scriptures. The holy man welcomes the young man and said he would help him. And first of all, he asked the young man to go to the Ganges and bring a container full of water, and he gives him the container. So the young man does as he is asked. He goes to the river, fills the container, walks back, but when he gets to the holy man, the container has lost all its water, is empty. And then holy man asks him again, and the young man does the same thing. He goes back, and he does that a few times, and then he says to the holy man, "Look, the container's got holes in it. How can I bring any water to you?" And the young man says to the holy man that the container has holes in it, fine. But our material condition has holes and we cannot retain very much. But if you look inside the container, you can see how clean it is. And he says to him, "In due course, as you spend time with me in devotion, your consciousness will purify and your focus will improve and you will learn to retain spiritual knowledge." So such is our condition in this material world, full of impurities, and whole Krishna consciousness process is to actually purify get rid of those impurities and purify ourselves. So we're guided by Bhagavad Gita, which is one of our core scriptures, the other two being Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. These are all translated into English by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Of course, there are many other books by other Swamis, modern as well as historic, Goswamis of Vrindavan, for instance, and those are all full of spiritual wisdom and, help us with the purification process. So I think that is my introduction, and now we will start with some chanting and prayers of gratitude. Please join me if you can. I shall be grateful. I'm not a good singer, so please make up for me by singing nicely. So we start. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Yashodhanandan Braj Jana Ranjana, Yashodhanandan Braj Jana Ranjana, Yamuna tira banachari, tira banachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari, Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari. Jai Gopi Jan Vallabha Girivardhari, Gopi Jan Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodhanandan Braj Jan Ranjan, Yashodhanandan Braj Jan Ranjan. Yamuna Tira Banachari, Jai Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari, Radha Madhava Kunj Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Radha Gokulanand, Radha Gokulanand, Radha Gokulanand, Shri Radhe. Radha Gokulanand, Radha Gokulanand, Radha Gokulanand, Shri Radhe. Jai Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman, Jai Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman. Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman, Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman. Jai Gauranitai, 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 Jai Gauranitai, 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 Jai Gauranitai. Jai Prabhupada, 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 Shila Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrind ki jai ho. So in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is instructing Arjuna, who is confused and bewildered. His mind is bewildering due to the state of worldly mindedness. So Lord Krishna explains the 5 topics that we talked about: Ishvara, Jiva, material nature, Prakriti, Kala, and the time, and Kama. So, and of course the progression from Karma Yoga to Jnana Yoga to Dhyan Yoga to Bhakti Yoga. So at the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna that the Lord has expressed his opinions, and now what Arjuna does is up to you, he says to Arjuna. So the point here is that the Lord Krishna never dictates to our free will. By our own free will, he wants us to come back to him. And so I think we come to the 637, the main verse that we want to talk about. So I shall recite the verse, and then, and then sort of Prabhupada's translation and purport, I shall read those. Arjuna Vacha Ayati Shraddhyapeto Yoga Chalita Manasa Aprapya Yoga Siddhim Kam Gatim Krishna Gachati. So Arjuna Vacha, Arjuna said, Ayati, the unsuccessful transcendentalist, Shraddhaya, with faith, Upeta means engaged, Yogat from the mystic link, Chalita gets deviated, Manasa, who has such a mind, Aprapya, failing to attain, Yoga Samsiddhim, the highest perfection in the mystic yoga. Kam, which Gatim, destination, Krishna, O Lord Krishna, Gachti, achieves. So translation, Arjuna said, O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism? So the word worldly mindedness here is quite important. So purport. The path of self-realization or mysticism is described in Bhagavad Gita. The basic principle of self-realization is knowledge that the living entity is not this material body, but that he is different from it, and that his happiness is in eternal life, bliss, and knowledge. Satchidanand. These are transcendental, beyond both body and mind. Self-realization is sought by the path of knowledge, which is Jnana Yoga, by the practice of eightfold system, which is the Ashtanga Yoga or Dhyana Yoga, or by Bhakti Yoga. So these are the three main ways of actually realize oneself. So in each of these processes, one has to realize the constitutional position of the living entity and his relationship with God and the activities whereby he can re-establish the lost link and achieve the highest perfectional stage of Krishna consciousness. Following any of the above three methods, so which is the Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, or Dhyana Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga, one is sure to reach the supreme goal sooner or later. This was asserted by the Lord in the second chapter. Even a little endeavor on the transcendental path offers a great hope for deliverance. Out of these three methods, the path of Bhakti Yoga is especially suitable for this age, because it is the most direct method of God realization. To be doubly sure, Arjuna is asking Lord Krishna to confirm his former statement. One may sincerely accept the path of self-realization, but the process of cultivation of knowledge and the practice of the eightfold yoga system are generally very difficult for this age. Therefore, despite constant endeavor, one may fail for many reasons. First of all, one may not be sufficiently serious about following the process. To pursue the transcendental path is more or less to declare war on the illusory energy, which is Maya, which actually takes us to all kind of material places. Consequently, whenever a person tries to escape the clutches of the illusory energy, she tries to defeat the practitioner by various allurements. A conditioned soul is already allured by the modes of material energy, and there is every chance of being allured again. Even while performing transcendental disciplines. So this is called Yoga Chalita Manasa, deviation from the transcendental path. Arjuna is inquisitive to know the result of deviation from the path of self-realization. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurudev Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Ebhisha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So Arjuna's bewilderment at the battlefield. He is ready to relinquish his dharma as a kshatriya. Arjuna is probably worried that he himself may fall in the spiritual journey and ask this particular question, 637, about the transcendentalist who may fail in his journey. So Lord Krishna immediately understands the situation with Arjuna is the worldly mindedness, and he begins to address the whole his mind going from karma yoga through to bhakti yoga. So earlier Arjuna has said to Lord Krishna, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramathi balvadram tashyam nirgraham manye vayureva iva sudushkaram. So Arjuna says, the mind is very restless, turbulent, strong and obstinate, O Krishna. It appears to me that it is more difficult to control than the wind. So you have probably seen this picture here. The 5 horses, the chariot, the two driver and a passenger. So Katha Upanishad describes the state of the mind. So 5 horses are the 5 senses. Chariot is our body. Driver is the intelligence, and passenger is our soul, and of course super soul is there. And the reins on these horses in the giving control to the intelligence is the mind. But intelligence is supposed to control the mind so that we have sense control and going in the right direction. But mind is very strong, as Arjuna has explained, restless, turbulent, strong, and obstinate. And it even begins to dominate the intelligence, and therefore the whole process of actually things going wrong for us starts. So Krishna then says to Arjuna, Shri Bhagwan Uvacha, Ansashayam Mahabaho, Mano Durnigraham Chalam, Abhyasentu Konteya Vairagyena na Grihcha Grihate. Lord Krishna says, yes, Arjuna, O son of Kunti, it is difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by a suitable practice and by detachment. So Arjuna here was thinking about a foreign yogi who is just like a cloud in the sky. When the 2 clouds are flying close together in the sky, in the sky, sometimes the smaller cloud will actually merge with the larger cloud, and in that process parts of the smaller cloud can actually then break away and then stay and then lose their significance, that meaning. That is called the riven cloud, and Arjuna thinks that a transcendentalist will be like a riven cloud and therefore lose its way and lose all the significant work that has been done in this life. So here it's described that the culmination of all kinds of yoga practices lies in bhakti yoga. Yoga actually means bhakti yoga. All other yogas are progression towards the destination of Bhakti Yoga. From the beginning of Karma Yoga to the end of Bhakti Yoga is a long way to self-realization. Karma Yoga, without fruitive results, is the beginning of this path of Krishna consciousness. When Karma Yoga increases in knowledge and renunciation, that stage is called Jnana Yoga. When Jnana Yoga increases in meditation on the super soul by different physical processes, the mind is on the super soul. It is called Astanga Yoga or Dhyana Yoga. And when one surpasses the Astanga Yoga and comes to the point of Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, it is called Bhakti Yoga, the culmination. So factually, the Bhakti Yoga is the ultimate goal. But to analyze Bhakti Yoga minutely, one has to understand these other yogas. The yogi is progressive, is therefore on the true path of eternal good fortune. One who sticks to a particular point and does not make further progress or falls down is called by a particular name: Karma Yogi, Jnana Yogi, Dhyana Yogi, and so on. So, Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness is very much needs the mercy of a Vaishnavas. Somehow or the other, if we can get the mercy of a Vaishnava and find our way to Bhakti Yoga and eternal good fortune, so please do seek and benefit from the association of Vaishnavas, particularly the senior Vaishnavas like Kesha Maharaj. It is by great fortune that one comes to Krishna consciousness on the path of Bhakti Yoga, to become well situated according to the Vedic tradition. Srila Prabhupada has described God, and he always sort of used to say to whoever he had a conversation with, "Can you describe me who your God is?" And then Prabhupada would always say, "Yes, I can." My Prabhupada described our God as Shyam Sundar, who is beautifully colored as a cloud, whose lotus-like face is as effulgent as the sun, whose dress is brilliant with jewels, and whose body is flower garlanded, illuminating all sides is his glorious luster, which is called the Brahma Jyoti. He incarnates in different forms such as Rama, Narasimha, Braha, and Krishna, and so on. He is full with all the opulences and transcendental qualities. So if one remains fully conscious on these features of the Lord, he is called the highest yogi. Krishna has already addressed what happens if a yogi falls down, having in Bhagavad Gita 2:40. So Krishna says, Neha bhikrama nasosti prativayo na vidyate swaplam api asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Krishna says, in this process, which is in this process of Krishna consciousness, or the whole process from Karma Yoga to Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, he says, any effort in that process, there is no loss or diminution. And a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So the most dangerous type of fear for us is that after many, many endeavors, we have achieved this human life, and we must do everything to make sure that we, at least what we achieve in the subsequent life, we are reborn as a human being so we can continue our path of Bhakti Yoga. So that is the most dangerous type of fear Krishna is talking about. So any work begun on this material plane has to be completed. In a physical sense, in the material world, whatever we do, we have to complete it, otherwise there is a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though it is not finished. So whatever little is done is actually stored as good fortune for later on. So there is a nice verse in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam, and I'm not skilled in Sanskrit to be able to do justice to it, so I shall just do the translation. So, one who has forsaken this is Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.17, Canto 1, Chapter 5, verse 17. Translation. So one who has forsaken his material occupations to engage in the material service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage. Yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in the occupational duties, may not gain anything. May I request a little quiet, please? Thank you. So I think in this connection, Bhagavad Gita 2:40, where Krishna says there is no loss or diminution in the practice of the process towards Bhakti Yoga. So there is a example of Bharat Maharaj. He was king of the emperor of Bharatvarsha, and he was a Raj Rishi, which means that he was a pious king who did his devotional duties in a devotional way. So, and then I think at a relatively young age, he decided to actually completely focus on his devotional service and spiritual practices. So he left his palaces to go into the forest, living in a small little kutia. And he carried on with his practice, making good progress. And then one day he saw a little stag, which was Hare Krishna. So a deer was actually, who was with a baby in the womb. She was trying to cross a river, and somehow a lion was chasing him. So she was quite afraid. But in any case, she gave birth to the little deer on the banks of the river, and then she tried to cross the river, and then she was swept away. And then Bharat Maharaj was actually watching all this, so he took the deer, small deer, baby deer, to his kutia, and he brought him up, looked after him, gave this deer milk and so on. And the deer sort of grew up, and then as things went on, Bharat Maharaj was getting old. So when he died, the last thing that he thought about was the deer, who would look after his deer when he's gone. So, and that also explained in Bhagavad Gita, whatever our last thought is, so that is our next life as well. So he was born as a deer in the next life, and he lived a good life, but he always remembered where he had come from and the devotional service that he had done. And as things went on, when that time came for the deer to die, he remembered Krishna, remembered the Supreme Lord. And the next year he was born into a family of a Brahmana family, very, very devotional Brahmana family. And he was given the name Jad Bharat, and he completed his journey to the spiritual world as a pious entity, as a devotional entity in that life. So therefore, as Krishna says that nothing is wasted. So this is the progression of Bharat Maharaj. Actually explains exactly what Krishna means. And then there was Chitraketu Maharaj, who fell down due to his offenses to Mother Parvati, the wife of Shiva. And she cursed him that he will be born as an asura. Although Chitraketu was a very realized personality, but he did not want to challenge Mother Parvati, so he accepted whatever had been given to him. And then in his next life, he was born as Vrita Asura, a very powerful demon with the underlying spirituality from his previous pious life. And so Vrita Asura, the nature of the demon is that they always want to fight with the Devtas. So he fought, and he kind of won all the planets of the Devas, and he defeated Indra as well. But anyhow, Indra somehow regrouped, and he then came back to challenge him again. And they fought, and threw various weapons at each other. But nevertheless, Vritasura, during the battle, actually was having a spiritual dialogue with Indra, and Indra was very confused exactly, what is happening here. He's an asura, but he's got more spiritual knowledge than I do. That way, when anyhow, so he allowed Indra to kill him in the end. He dies, then he achieves his spiritual abode that way. And then there's a story about Ajamela, who was a Brahmana, leading a good pious life, but then somehow he fell into a sort of company, and then he left his wife and family, and he married a prostitute. And they had a child by the name, and he named him Narayana. And the child kind of grew up, and then of course Ajamela grew older as well. And then when he was about to die, the Yamdutas came to get him, to make him suffer for his sins. But then at that point he called for his son Narayana. And I think it was a mixed feeling there. He was referring to Lord Narayana as well as the Narayana, his son. But nevertheless, then the Vishnu Dutas came and then kind of freed him from the Yamdutas, and then he realized his sins, and then he went back to Haridwar, and he did his meditation and his devotional service there for the rest of his life, and then he achieved a good spiritual ending in the end. So the material activities and the end results, and the results end with the body, but work in Krishna consciousness carries a person again from Krishna consciousness even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life of being born again as a human being, at least, and perhaps something better. So I shall just in the verse 640, Krishna is saying Krishna is describing Partha naveha namutra vidash satam vidyate nahi kalyan krita kaschid durgritam tata gachati. Krishna says in 640, the Supreme, O Partha, one who engages on the spiritual path does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the world to come. My dear friend, one who strives for God realization is never overcome by evil. So this verse asserts that God preserves the devotee both in this world and the world hereafter. This pronouncement is a great assurance to all spiritual aspirants. Shri Krishna then explains how God preserves the efforts of a yogi who does not complete the journey. Prapya punya kritam lokam mustiva sashvate samaha suchinam shritam gehe yoga barhasto vijayate. The unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. The unsuccessful yogis are divided into two classes. One is fallen after a very long progress, and one is fallen after almost at the beginning. So the yogi who falls after a short practice period goes to the higher planets because he's been, the worldly mindedness. So because he has a desire to enjoy, so he is sent to the higher planets by Lord's arrangement, where pious living entities are allowed to enter. After prolonged life there, one is sent back again to this planet to take birth in the family of a righteous Brahmana, Vaishnava, or a merchant family. So the real purpose of the yoga practice is to achieve the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness, as explained in the last verse of this chapter. But those who do not persevere to such an extent and who fail because of material allurements are allowed by the grace of Lord to make full utilization of their material propensities. And then a yogi who actually falls after a very long time, after very long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly such a birth is very rare in this world. So I think our, you know, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was born in the family of such Vaishnavas. And of course, Srila Prabhupada likewise, right from the early stages, early age, he was given opportunity to practice devotional service in various ways. So I think what's the time now? 6:45, okay. The highest perfection of yoga is Krishna consciousness, which means to restrain the senses and fix the consciousness on Krishna. Without being Krishna conscious, it is not at all possible to control the senses. So the senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of devotional service to Krishna. Senses are purified, controlled and aligned to the service of Lord only by bhakti yoga. Simply restraining senses is no use because they will trouble us again. These have to be directed to Lord's service. And then in the bhakti, to perform bhakti, there are 9 ways to perform bhakti, devotion to the Supreme Lord Krishna. Shravanam, which is the hearing about the Lord, which is the Krishna Katha, which we are trying to do here. And then there's Kirtanam, which is glorifying Lord Krishna, singing loudly. Smarnam, which is remembering Lord Krishna, and Prahlad Maharaj is the authority on that. Pad Sevanam, attending to the feet of the Lord, which is Lakshmi Devi. Archanam, worshipping of Lord Krishna, which our pujaris do. Vandanam, praying to the Lord Krishna, which we do. Dasyam, becoming a servitor to the Lord, which is like Hanumanji. Sakhyam, becoming a dear friend to Lord Krishna, like Arjuna. Atma Nivedan, which is full surrender to the Supreme Lord, and that is Bali Maharaj. So, when through this process of bhakti, these 9 steps, slowly and slowly we begin to, the mirror of our soul begins to get purified, and then in the end, if we follow this process, our intelligence, mind, faith and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme. Then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge and thus proceeds straight to the path of liberation. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasures, but is always in a trance enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, Satchidanand, for he is always in the company of the Supreme Lord. So, we are all grihasthas, and there are some brahmacharis here, of course, and a lot of us are grihasthas. And then I'll tell you a little story about a grihastha, very successful grihastha. Ambarisa Maharaj, he was a king, he was a Raj Rishi, so the king which was practicing the devotional service. And somehow, one day, Durvasa Muni, who was a very learned Brahmana, and he was a Rishi, and he was a very powerful yogi with lots of powers, the siddhis which we talked about earlier, which the Astanga Yoga process gives you. Somehow the other, Durvasa Muni became very angry with Ambarisa Maharaj, and he was insulting him, becoming angry more and more, and then angry enough to create a demon which will kill Maharaja Ambarish. So at that point, Supreme Lord, to defend his pure devotee, he released Sudarshan Chakra, and so it came. And before that, so he had created Durvasa Muni had created a demon to kill Ambarisa Maharaj. So Sudarshan Chakra comes and then he kills the demon, and then the Sudarshan Chakra is pursuing the Durvasa Muni. And then Durvasa Muni cannot pacify, he does not have the ability to pacify Sudarshan Chakra, but he's able to run. So he's running, he's sort of always running ahead of the Sudarshan Chakra. He goes to various upper planetary system and even goes to Narayana. And Narayana says to him, I cannot help you. You have offended a devotee, therefore only person who can save you is that devotee. So Maharaja Ambarisa was able to, then he came back and Maharaja Ambarisa actually managed to calm the Sudarshan Chakra, and where the Durvasa Muni obviously could not. So, he certainly had powers, Durvasa Muni, but Ambarisa Maharaj, who was a Raj Rishi, a devotional practicing king, he had greater powers and he had a greater blessings of the Supreme Lord, and he was able to forgive the Durvasa Muni and also pacify the Sudarshan Chakra and then save him. So such are the protections offered the pure devotees. And as I said, the full realization of the spiritual world isn't just for the sannyasis. So Ambarisa Maharaj was a grihastha. So even in grihastha life, little by little we can make a good progress and be in a great position when the time comes for our subsequent lives. So Krishna is actually not very demanding, he's very kind. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit or water, I shall accept it. So Krishna is not asking for much. So with love, out of our own free will, he wants us to offer him something, and then his blessings will flow our way. So out of our free will, for the grihasthas, he wants us to do something for him out of our own free will. So, please try to accept what is favorable to Krishna and reject which is not favorable to Krishna. But often what happens is that we look what is favorable to us and favorable to Krishna, we will do that. But the ideal is to only do those things which are favorable to Krishna. So but of course the things that are favorable to Krishna are greatly favorable to us. That is what is assured by our acharyas and our shastras. So in our Krishna consciousness, we chant 16 rounds and we refrain from a number of practices, meat eating and so on, alcohol, gambling, etc. So, fine. We do what we can. We do start with one round, we do more, but slowly and slowly that the dust which is gathered on the mirror of our soul will actually begin to lighten, and then we see the real mirror for what it is, which is Sachidanand, always is seeking eternal life, it's seeking bliss, and it's seeking knowledge. So, and then along the way, Lord Chaitanya has visited us in the Kali Yuga 500 years ago, and he's made the process of bhakti very much easier. So, Ashtanga Yoga is difficult, the various other Gyan Yoga is not possible, but with this simple Mahamantra that he is given, he said that this is the only way to actually achieve spiritual progress in Kali Yuga for almost all of us, most people. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nameva Kevalam, Kalau Nasti, Eva Nasti, Eva Nasti, Eva Gati Ranyata. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. There is no difference between Krishna and the holy name. Chanting the holy name is being with Krishna himself. So spiritual life has been made a lot easier in this age of Kali Yuga. Would you like to ask any questions or make any comments? Correct me? So, all right, let me just see if I can get a... How well do you know Bhagavad Gita? So where was Bhagavad Gita spoken? Anybody? Kurukshetra. You know where it is? Outside Delhi, in Haryana, yes. And actually, it's very interesting. So how did we come to hear Bhagavad Gita? How is it now come to us? Why has it come to us, and who's facilitated it?
I thought there were two separate authors of the Gita, two versions I understood there to be. That Sanjay interpreted Krishna Bhagwan's words as they were spoken to Arjuna.
Yes.
He was able to transmit them to the to the Radha.
That is wonderful. So Sanjay, who had been given great abilities to be able to see and hear in distance by Vyasadeva, so he heard everything and he was able to then pass it down the generations. Isn't that wonderful? And the Bhagavatam, as you know, was okay. Akshahini. Do we know what is Akshahini is? This is the armies on the battlefield. So there are from memory 60,000 charioteers, 60,000 horses, elephants likewise, and then infantry. Roughly each Akshahini is about 250,000 soldiers, I think, in total. And then I think in this war, the Pandavas had 7 Akshahini battalions, and then the Kauravas had 11. So Kauravas had more people. And of course, all of Krishna's armies were donated to Kauravas because Pandavas chose Arjuna, who said, I will not fight. Pandavas chose Krishna, and that's the way the Kauravas ended up with the greater forces. So with this, I thank you very much for giving me the time and listening to me, and thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Radha Gokulanand ki jai. Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman ji ki jai. Gaura Nitai ki jai.
Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavangscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Ragana Raghunatanitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Sri Radha Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare Krishna. If we just get everybody standing up for Arati, which will probably open any second now. Oh, why is this? Jaya Radha Gokulananda Radha Gokulananda Shri Radha Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman
Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Sitaram Lakshman
Jaya Gauranita 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 Jaya Gauranita Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Bhagavan ki Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki Shri Shri Gaunithai ki Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Deva Jaya Jaya Thoda Chande Aradhika Shaba Deva Jaya Jaya Thoda Chande Aradhika Shaba Janari Tata Jagamanalava Sakhi